like to now call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Harlingen City Commission to order and call upon Commissioner Mesmar to lead us in an invocation.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Kyrie eleison, Господи помилуй, я рабура. Domne lueste, Señor, ten piedad, Lord, have mercy.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome you all to our meeting tonight. Thank you for coming under these circumstances as we continue to observe safe practices at these meetings and the CDC guidelines. So, is there any citizen communication?
Yes, Mayor, there is. And the first one on the list is Adam Eliazarde, address 3022 Pinehurst. Topic of discussion is new development.
All right. Come on.
They had us sign in downstairs, I guess we signed in.
No, that's what they gave us to sign in, all three of us signed in.
Okay, so you don't want to speak. All right.
Okay, Mayor, so I guess they're all related, all three of them? So none of them wants to speak. Is that correct?
Do any of the Elizardes want to speak? Okay. All right. Was that it?
That's it, Mayor.
All right, let's go to item number 1, which is the presentation of a proclamation proclaiming the month of June 2020 as Homeownership Month. And is there anybody here to receive this proclamation? Come on. Sometimes I don't recognize people because they're disguised, all disguised. So, the proclamation declares National Homeownership Month, whereas homeownership is the American dream and it is close to the heart of Harlingen, Texas. Special power in the neighborhood where most families own their homes. A new homeowner receives a key that does more than unlock the door. It represents a place where children can grow, learn, and feel safe. An opportunity to save money and to build equity for the future, and a sense of stability and belonging to the greater community. And just as it builds strong families, homeownership is the building block of strong communities too. Whereas thanks to the prosperity of this nation and the joy of the past decade, more Americans are homeowners today than at any other time in history. As mayor, I am committed to helping more citizens, especially those who have been shut out in the past, of the joy, the financial security, and the sense of community that comes with owning their own home. Whereas the Department of Housing and Urban Development is working in partnership with state and local governments, communities, and the private sector to make the most effective use of federal funds through a combination of housing, counseling, down payment assistance, and closing cost assistance. Whereas through funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, we're helping our residents buy homes to live their lives. They had only one step. Whereas homeownership is the home buyer, our own and the community, it is the American dream, and during National Homeownership Month, we rededicate ourselves to that dream and to every American who seeks to achieve it. Now, therefore, I, Chris Boswell, Mayor of the City of Harlingen, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2020 as National Homeownership Month, and ask all citizens in our community to observe and support. So, thank you. Is there anything, would you like to say anything? All right, appreciate it. Next is the item 2, the approval of the minutes of the regular City Commission meeting of April 15th. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign, motion carries. Item 3 is a public hearing and to take and possible action to approve substantial amendment to the proposed substantial amendment regarding the City of Harlingen request of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to allow a 1-year extension to the city's 5-year consolidated plan for the period of 2015-2019. This amendment consists of extending the end date from 2020 to 2021. Gabe?
Mayor, members of the commission, all this item does is extends the date for the submission of the 5-year consolidated plan from 2020 to 2021. This document was done in coordination with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, so staff recommends approval, and this is a public hearing.
All right, is there anyone who would like to speak for or against this amendment? Is there anyone? I'll open the public hearing. Hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing. And is there a motion to approve the substantial amendment?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign, motion carries. Item 4, public hearing and take action to approve a substantial amendment to the City of Harlingen's 2018-19 1-year action plan in the amount of $151,804 and substantial amendment to the 2019-20 1-year action plan in the amount of $57,050.
Mayor, members of the commission, the amendment to relocate $151,804 is to complete the field lighting at Vestal Park and also to cover a $23,000 shortfall in the original lighting project that was set up. The $57,050 is to complete Pierce Street and to start part of Mitchell in Los Vecinos. Staff recommends approval of the amendments.
All right, is there this is a public hearing, is there anyone who would like to speak for or against the amendment for $151,804 and a substantial amendment in the amount of $57,050? Is there anyone? Hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing and ask if there is a motion to approve the substantial amendment.
Motion to approve. Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign, motion carries. Item 5 is a public hearing to take action on amending the City of Harlingen's 2015 through 2019 consolidated plan and 1-year action plan 2019-2020 to include the special allocation of $522,136 in CDBG CV funds authorized by the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus.
Mayor, this is a one-time allocation that was given to the City of Harlingen for $22,000 that must be spent on COVID-19 related expenditures. Now, in making those expenditures, the funds still have to meet a national objective. So they either have to be used for low to moderate income people, the elderly, or removal or of blight of some sort that's related to COVID-19. Staff has come up with some possible projects that we can do, which would involve testing residents in nursing homes for $200,000, paying for masks and gloves for housing authority residents for $92,000, for utility and rent assistance for $100,000, for food bank distribution for $100,000, and for administrative costs for $30,000 to oversee the expenditure of these funds. We still can amend some of these during the process, but again, any funding that is spent on this has to be for COVID-related expenses and must satisfy a HUD objective. And also, any funds that we spent on this particular expenditure cannot be submitted for reimbursement from FEMA. So staff recommends approval of the funding.
So does this include any current or past expenses or just future expenses?
Future expenses, because we haven't spent any money yet, so.
All right, this is also a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding the CARES Act CDBG fund allocation? Hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing and ask if there is a motion to approve the allocation, to include the allocation.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 6, public hearing and take action to approve the amendments to the Citizen Participation Plan of the Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership Program.
Mayor, members of the commission, what this item did was it reduced the public comment for CDBG funds from 30 days to 15 days, and it also allowed us to have virtual meetings for the process of expending the CDBG funds. This was done already in anticipation of HUD approval, so staff recommends approval of the amendments.
Okay, this requires a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak for or against the approval of the amendments to the Citizen Participation Plan? Anyone? All right, hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing and ask if there is a motion to approve the amendments to the Citizen Participation Plan.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 7 is a public hearing and action to approve a one-year action plan budget for fiscal year 2020-2021, year 46 of the Community Development Block Grant Program, and fiscal year 2020 to 2021, year 26 of the Home Investment Partnerships Program.
Mayor, for this next item, Sandy Wolhoff, the city's compliance coordinator for the CDBG program, will be making the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Can you hear me? Okay. So the City of Harlingen is an entitlement community for CDBG and home funds, and one of the requirements from HUD is that we prepare a one-year action plan. And as part of the plan, the city must outline the projects that will be funded and completed on an annual basis. During the process to come up with these funding recommendations, staff has held, we had to publish a notice of funding availability on February the 1st of 2020. We then held an application workshop on February the 18th. We also had the deadline for the applications were on March the 6th. And we received a total of 7 applications from, social service agencies and 6 from city departments. And we also received 1 application for home funding. On May the 26th, the Community Development Advisory Board held a meeting via video conference, via Zoom. And this is where these funding recommendations were established. I can go ahead and go down the list. The amount of funding that we have available is $1.53,172. And here are the proposed projects. Public facilities, street improvements for Los Vecinos area. They're recommending $262,350. And these funds are for reconstruction of Buchanan Avenue and Mitchell Avenue. This is actually part of phase 2 for the Los Vecinos area. We currently have funding for Pierce Avenue, so this will complete all 3 streets. The next one is for street improvements, Fillmore Avenue, also $159,974. These fundings will reconstruct a section of Fillmore Avenue from J Street to M Street, and it's approximately 0.21 miles. The next one is Amigos del Valle. This is a public service agency for $15,000. These funds will provide home-delivered meals to 12 homebound elderly residents. Area Agency on Aging for $10,000. These funds would provide medication, medical supplies, and medical equipment to 20 elderly residents of Harlingen. Next, we have the Boys and Girls Club for $60,000. These fundings would provide membership fees for 300 low to moderate income children. Court-appointed special advocates, or CASA, $16,000. They are anticipated to serve 115 children who have been removed from their homes. These funds would pay for the salary for the caseworker. Family Crisis Center for $12,000. Family Crisis Center is anticipated to serve 135 children who reside in the emergency service shelter. And these funds would pay for the salary of the child advocate. The next one would be Sunshine Haven for $20,000. These funds would pay for the salaries and benefits for staff to provide comfort care to terminally ill residents. They're anticipated to serve about 55 residents this year. The Housing Rehab Program, Housing Rehab Program, $120,259. This is for our in-house program that we administer in our department. This would help about 4 families in the city. Administration of housing rehab, $35,000. This is for project delivery costs and salaries and benefits as well. General administration, $177,000. This is statutory 10% of the grant, and it's for administration of the grant, salaries, benefits, and other items that we need for the department. Then we go down to home. This is Habitat for Humanity was one of the organizations that applied for home funding. They're recommending $135,000, and that is to build 2 homes for low to moderate income families. The next one is a home affordable housing program for the city. This is our in-house department, also project that program that we administer, and it's for down payment, closing costs, gap financing, and new construction of housing for $148,632. The next one is home administration support for $31,514. Again, that's statutory 10% for administration fees or costs. And that is it for the home funding. At the bottom, we have housing rehabilitation. That is anticipated revolving loan funds that we receive at the department. These are payments that are made for houses that we have reconstructed or rehabilitated in the past. We're anticipating $38,616, and that goes back into our housing rehab program. $11,829 is a revolving loan anticipated for HCDC that we don't get back. They keep that for prior projects that they had. So this brings us to the total funding amount of $1,253,174. Do y'all have any questions?
On the Haven, you had mentioned 50 or 55?
Sunshine Haven? 55. They all have to be residents of Harlingen.
Oh, they are?
We will only reimburse for residents of Harlingen inside the city limits.
Okay, good.
All right. This requires a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak for or against the action plan? One-year action plan, the budget. Okay, anyone? Hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing and ask the commission if there's a motion to approve the one-year action plan.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion or questions? Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 8, public hearing to consider an ordinance on first reading to rezone from general GR district to planned development PD district to allow for single-family residential and multifamily residential use of a 14.64 acre tract out of lots 15 through 16, block 146, San Benito Land and Water Company subdivision located on the north side of Haines Drive, east of Treasure Haven. Applicant is Armando Elizardi.
Mayor, City Commission, good evening. This property is on Hain Avenue, and this is a BFW road, and this is Hain, kind of to the north of that is this entire property here. Oh, okay. The property is currently zoned GR district, a general retail district. Here's the aerial photograph. As you can see, it's agricultural land right now, close to Treasure Hills Boulevard. Next. If you remember, the thoroughfare plan was amended back in March. Originally, the alignment for Golden Bear was to do this and connect to BFW, and it was amended to go straight, and that relates to this project. Next. This is the layout of the proposed plan development. The proposal is to have single-family homes here. This will be a public street here, and then the developer has a contract to purchase the rest of this property. So the plan is to connect this street to Golden Bear. As you know, Golden Bear is supposed to go straight and connect to Hain, but the street is supposed, when the next phases are developed, this street is supposed to connect to Golden Bear, and it will not be a dead end anymore. So like I said, these are single-family homes that are proposed. Over here, he's proposing apartments. It's kind of like a row of apartments all along here. And he's proposing a private street to connect the apartments with one entrance here and then the other entrance here. So all of these will be apartments under one ownership with a private roadway connecting the apartments. Next. This is the site plan that is proposed. This is the site plan that will be in the ordinance. Like I mentioned before, these are the single-family homes, including this, and then this will be the apartments in green. And then you have setbacks and specified in the ordinance. Next, a picture of the property from Hain Drive. As you can see, it's agricultural land. Next, and this is a picture from Golden Bear, showing the property kind of over here. Next, the land use plan calls for medium density residential, so the proposed single-family homes and apartments are in line with the land use plan for the area. Next. You have a timeline, and then the next slide is a timeline phase 2, in case, part 2, in case we need to refer to it. Next. Next. Just to remind the commissioners about plan developments. A plan development district is a freestanding zoning district that may be created for the purposes of permitting property to be developed with one or more uses, not otherwise permitted by right or special use in the zoning district in which the property is located, subject to the ordinance and site plan created in the PD zone. In this case, the proposed land uses are allowed in the existing general retail district, but a planned development allows narrow residential streets of 30 feet in width as opposed to 33 feet in width in the residential single-family district. A comprehensive site plan of the development is required, which is what I showed you earlier. Section 111, 232E1 states that on-site drainage is required as a part of the planned development. Next. During the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the discussion consisted of why staff initially recommended approval of the request, and 3 hours prior to the meeting changed the recommendation to denial. There was also discussion on why issues of drainage expressed by the city engineer needed to be addressed as part of the zoning request instead of being addressed during the subdivision process. Discussion also centered on the drainage requirements of the city for the proposed development, drainage improvements for a 10-year storm, as the developer claimed he was advised by city administration during a meeting, or drainage improvements for a 25-year storm as required by the city engineer. The commission also questioned whether the 25-year storm requirement is stated in the city code of ordinances. Next. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing during their meeting of May 27, and no one spoke in opposition to the Plan Development District request. The Commission unanimously recommended approval of the proposed Plan Development District as initially recommended by the planning staff, which included the conditions of complying with the drainage requirements and applicable requirements from the engineering department, also complying with applicable requirements from the fire department, providing a 5-foot sidewalk on Hayne Drive and ADA curb ramps on the entrance to the street prior to recording subdivision, and complying with the sidewalk ordinance, which is part of the subdivision ordinance. And this was with a 5-0 vote. It was a unanimous vote.
You got one more slide?
No,
Public hearing?
public hearing.
Okay.
Public hearing.
I guess we'll go to public hearing. This requires a public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to speak for or against this rezoning request? Please come to the podium and state your name and your address, please.
My name is Armando Lizardi. I'm the developer of East Treasure Haven. I live at 3022 Pinehurst. I'm sorry that I don't know if I meet the height requirement here for this, but
There's also a weight requirement.
oh well, that one I might be able to reach. I am the developer East Treasure Haven. I wanted to clarify a couple of things that were just said. Number one, they're not apartments, they're townhomes. In the multifamily section, none of them will be attached, all of them will be individual. Number two, I am only here for zoning, that's all, nothing else. Anything that has to do with infrastructure, drainage, streets, my engineer, Jack Brown, will address those when we go through the subdivision process. It makes no sense to recommend denial when we haven't even gotten to the subdivision process. In February of this year, I had a developers meeting with every single department head. Everybody was there. We met for over an hour, including Gabe and including Mr. Sanchez were there. At the end of the meeting, I was given very clear direction on what I needed to do to continue to move the project forward. And I have been doing that for the past 3 months under the direction of the planning department. I hired an engineer. We spent thousands of dollars in a plat, in a drainage report, which is already handed in, just for zoning. That's all, just for zoning. It makes no sense to require that kind of financial hardship from developers when you only want zoning. We're putting the cart before the horse. People should be able to come in, pay their application, request the zoning, then move on. But here, we're investing thousands of dollars and keeping our fingers crossed and hope we pass it. After the meeting, we worked with planning direction. I did everything they wanted. 3 hours, like he mentioned, 3 hours before the planning meeting started, I got a call from Joel telling me that the director had said he had changed his mind and he was going to recommend denial. 3 hours before the meeting, months and thousands of dollars later, he decides, well, I don't want to do it no more. I told Joel, wait a minute, how can you tell me 3 hours before the meeting that you've changed your mind? We've already invested months and thousands of dollars. The answer I got was, under the direction of the planning director, he has decided to be more in line with the city engineer. That's the answer, more in line with the city engineer. Not that my subdivision had a deficiency, not that there was something wrong with my subdivision, but his co-worker recommended denial, so he's doing it too. What kind of leadership is that? That we're going by what our co-workers suggest? We're not evaluating the subdivisions on their individual basis, on their merit. We're evaluating it on what everybody else is doing. That's not leadership. As he mentioned, The P and Z recommended 5-0 to approve this project. This is once, like he mentioned, I have a contract on all the rest of the land. Can you show the plat on the screen? Or at least the subdivision and what's next to it. Go back to it. Okay, that's fine. Okay. You want to go back? No, please. Okay, thank you. I did Treasure Haven right there. That subdivision, I did that subdivision. This is a continuation of that subdivision. This is my third planned development on this street. Every single subdivision on this street is a planned development. 100%. All of them are planned developments. This is my third one. If it's not a planned development, it's multifamily. And that's exactly what we're doing. There's no reason for denial when we fit every single subdivision that's there. This is phase 2. We have a contract on all this. And what's disappointing is that when this is 100% completed, this is worth over $36 million for this community, which 99 or 100% will stay in this community. And they're already recommending denial before you even had a chance to hear about it. If I hadn't passed planning and zoning, you wouldn't be hearing about this. We would have gone away. So that's what's disappointing. If I could, I'd like to submit for the record, and I did for P&Z. I don't know if you got this or not. If I may approach the bench. This is an email, maybe you have it, from planning and zoning to me. You'd like to pass it around, maybe do it as That's an email from planning and zoning to me, telling me that they have recommended the subdivision, and up till 3 hours before we came before them. If I could, I don't know if you have the executive summary, you all have the executive
Yeah, we have.
summary that they provided you?
We have,
Mayor, I'm sorry, I see it, am I not?
we have I'm not sure what you're asking about.
This is what the planning department provided to P&Z, right?
I think we have, I mean, we have the P&Z minutes, and we have,
If not, I'm gonna go through it with you, if I could have it back.
go ahead and continue.
Okay, I need it.
Oh, you need it back.
I thought you were given a copy of the executive summary. They provided to planning provides it to P&Z, and I guess they didn't provide it to you. If I could briefly go through it. The first item on the executive summary is surrounding properties. Okay. Every single subdivision, as I mentioned, is a PD on the street. They're all PDs. We fit the zoning for that area, every single one. The second one is future land use plan. Believe it or not, we fit the future land use plan. This is exactly what the community and you all voted on. We fit the future land use plan. And what's a little bit disappointing is that every subdivision that I have ever done that doesn't fit the future land use plan, I have had to come before this board, ask for a variance, and pay a fee. Now I fit the plan, and we still want to deny it. I don't think it's right that we use the future land use plan against developers. Either we're going to follow it or we're not going to follow it, not just when it's convenient. Next thing is objections in the area. They sent out 15 letters, 0 complaints from nobody in the area. Nobody complained about the project. Next thing is they've talked about drainage. They've talked about this dead-end road. That's wrong. That's something they made up. That's something the engineer has made up. And I asked this commission, and if you go to the minutes in planning and zoning, they brought the engineer up here, and they asked him, does the ordinance say that? Look at his remarks. He'll tell you it doesn't. It doesn't say that. The ordinance does not say 25-year drainage. That's something he has made up on his own. That's not the case. And they asked him, and he said, "It's my opinion." I guess it was January of this year, all the developers and all the engineers, we asked city management for a meeting. We met in this very room, all of us. The only people that showed up for management was Mr. Sanchez and the utility director. They took notes. Every engineer, every developer got a chance to stand up and speak what the issues were. We spent over an hour, and 100% of all the complaints and all the issues were on the engineering department. That's all we talked about. At that meeting, we were told by Mr. Sanchez that, number one, we were going to maintain the current standards, what they are right now, which is 10 years. Number two, the city was working on creating a new subdivision ordinance plan. They were in the middle of writing it, but they haven't had time. Mr. Sanchez told all the developers and all the engineers, we'll have a workshop, we'll have a meeting before we roll it out, but right now, we're maintaining the standards the way they are. We're going by the standards what they are. And if you go to the minutes, at the P&Z meeting, it's 10 years, not 25. That's something he made up. After that meeting, in March, I called Mr. Sanchez. I said, "Mr. Sanchez, did you not communicate with the city engineer? We're still going around and around about the same thing. Did you not tell him what you told us? I'll take care of it. I'm going to handle it. I've had other people call me and complain about it. I will handle it." Of course, nothing happened. In May, a few weeks ago, we had a meeting again with Dan. Mr. Sanchez was there. We did a Zoom meeting. Same thing. We went around and around. Dan told all of us, all the engineers and all the developers, number one, we're in the middle of writing it, okay? Number two, we're going to have input from the community. Number three, we're not going to do nothing until the coronavirus passes. Here I am, again, 5 months later, arguing the same thing because we're making it up as we go along. We're not following the ordinances, and we're just making it up. This dead-end street, the engineer reads to you what he wants to for you to listen to. Go down to the fire marshal's notes. He recommends approval. It's not a dead end. This connects to the next phase. That's, unfortunately, as developers, we can't always pick the land that we develop on and the shapes and sizes. That's why if you go to the fire marshal, and I don't know if he's here, his recommendations, he'll tell you, we leave us the about so we can connect. As long as we label it.
Mr. Elizardi, I'm gonna ask you to try to wrap it up, and I'll give you some more time if the commission has some questions. But I think that you've made your point. I usually we have 2 minutes for this. I wanted to give you a little more time because Mr. Cervantes kind of characterized the discussion. I wanted you to have an opportunity to respond to it. But you can, if you have a couple more things you want to add to finish up.
It's okay. I mean, we're making it up as we go along. That's not what happened, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that the commission may have. Sorry about this thing here.
I have a question for city staff.
Well, hang on. I need to let me conclude the public hearing. And like I said, I'm going to give Mr. Elizardi an opportunity to respond if he or add things when we get to the discussion. But for the public hearing part of this, is there anyone else who would like to speak for or against the rezoning? All right. Anyone else? Then I'll conclude the public hearing. And do you want to ask a question before we go to the action item? I guess?
Yeah, a question for staff. Item number B says, first reading to rezone from single, to allow single-family residential multifamily use. So I don't understand why we were presented with a plots, layout of lots and all that sort. I mean, isn't this just to go from general retail?
Yes, because it's a planned development district, and a planned development district requires a site plan. So it's different from the other zonings.
Okay.
And also, there's language in the ordinance that requires on-site drainage. So that's also different from the other. In the other, when somebody requests a zoning change, we don't deal with drainage. But in a planned development district, there is language in the ordinance that requires on-site drainage. So that's why the engineering department gets involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Then for Mr. Elizardi, I have a couple questions for you. More or less, what are the size of the lots in acreage?
Well, and he didn't point this out, and it came up planning and zoning, but the residential lots have about 5,500 square feet.
What does that mean in
Okay.
acreage?
That's regular size for most my Adams Crossing, it's the same size. So it's.
Where is Adams Crossing? Okay.
It's regular residential size lots, they're not
Okay.
smaller.
Engineering, what's 5,500 square feet?
Of an acre?
Pardon?
Of an acre?
Yes.
No, they're different size, but
I know, I asked more or less.
they started, 55 by 115.
Okay.
So whatever that is, which is a regular residential lot.
I'm just curious. Acreage. Andy, more or less?
6 to 1.
It's about 6 to 1. It's a total of 14 acres, the whole subdivision.
Well,
Yeah, I know, but I'm just curious what a 5,500...
okay,
I have no perspective.
yes, sir. Okay, it's a ratio.
I know 640 acres is a square mile. That's all I know. An eighth? An eighth, so,
1/8 of an acre.
okay, in decimal points?
125?
Okay, so these are smaller lots. They're not a half an acre or three-quarters
they're
of an
not.
acre.
Okay, I would tell you that, as you know, the university is being built across the street. This is some of the most expensive real estate in this city. Okay?
Yeah, I was just asking
Yeah.
acreage.
No, but what I'm getting at is a 6 to 1 ratio. There's 8 acres of residential. So if you divide 49 lots by 8, that tells you how many you're getting per acre.
Okay. The item B is the consideration of possible action to approve an ordinance on first reading to rezone from general retail GR district to, let's get it on the table, and then we can ask more questions during the discussion period. To planned development PD district to allow for a single-family residential and multifamily residential use for a 14.64 acre tract out of lots 15 through 16, block 146, San Benito Land and Water Company subdivision located at the above described property, and ask the city attorney to read the caption, please.
Yes, sir. An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Harlingen, rezone from General Retail, GR District, to Planned Development, PD District, to allow for a single-family residential and multifamily residential use for a 14.64 acre tract out of lots 15, 16, block 146, San Benito Land and Water Company subdivision, located on the north side of Hain Drive, east of Treasure Haven Drive, subject to, number 1, complying with the drainage requirements and applicable requirements from the engineering department, and 2, complying with the applicable requirements from the Fire Prevention Bureau, and 3, providing a 5-foot sidewalk along Hain Drive and ADA curb ramps on the entrance to the street prior to recording of the subdivision, and 4, complying with the city sidewalk ordinance, which is part of the subdivision, providing for publication and ordaining other matters related to the foregoing.
Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, now, any other questions or
Yeah,
discussion?
I had a couple questions. And this is more, I guess, for the city engineer, because this kind of reminds me of the last rezoning that we had that came up before us, and it had to do with the street. And again, yes, it is just for rezoning, but we're telling the developer, are you going to be willing to put the street in, because these are what the codes are going to follow. So I just wanted clarity on, I'm looking at the page in the book for the why they're recommending this approval. It's 2 items. basically the drainage report, that there was no proposed improvements, and secondly, the dead-end street or whatnot. So, I wanted to get your side of it, or you can explain that a little bit clearly. And then, are we gonna have an issue, if it does pass, that those will not get followed, if that's part of the process to get permits and whatnot? Because to the developer's point, you're gonna continue to keep spending money to get to an end game where we're gonna have an issue. I think that's what I wanted clarity on, why staff's not approving it, and the board didn't approve it, and you're asking us to approve it. That's.
No, the board
The
did
board
approve
did
it.
approve it
They did approve it.
unanimously.
Oh, okay, so then I read that wrong, so it said,
You want to bring up that last slide?
made the motion to request original staff's recommendation was a unanimous vote, carried. But I'm seeing staff recommended for disapproval, and then I guess the board approved it?
Yes.
Okay. I was getting, I guess, putting that together.
Which is what Mr. Elizalde wanted, correct?
Okay. So is that, am I understand that correctly, that you foresee we're gonna have a problem in the future when they're trying to get the permitting process because of these two items?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I would say I generally agree with Mr. Elizalde on a simple zoning request. A site plan should not be locked in, but for some reason, with a specific to the PD zoning, you have to submit a site plan, and after that, you can't change anything. So once that's in place, he would have to go back to the board if he added improvements for drainage or others. So, as to the request simply for zoning, I don't see any issue with that. The issue, again, is in a PD zone, you have to submit a site plan, and that kind of locks you in. Now, what we saw when we looked at the site plan was that there was no storm mitigation for runoff,
So
right?
does that mean he'll be able to develop it without it, if it's approved, or?
My thought is he will be able to move forward, but at some point, he's going to have to go back to the board and get an amended site plan. And if he adds drainage improvements, he'll have to go back to amend the site plan.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, you want to respond?
Yeah. Let me just answer that, what you just said real quick, for you. This is the engineering drainage report, stamped by the engineer, dated April 21st, handed in to the city.
Right there.
We've got it, I think.
So everything's there, the runoff, calculations, everything.
Okay, Carl.
Let me-
So in review of the report, I did not see any stormwater mitigation at all. So it simply drains into the adjacent drain ditch. And that's why I recommended disapproval. That was the basis of my
The
recommendation.
adjacent drain ditch, I drive by there frequently.
Sure.
The adjacent drain ditch,
Emerald Lake,
it's
basically.
it's like a levee wall with the drainage from the fields, I guess, to the west, southwest, in that gully.
Right, so
Well, go ahead.
I believe there's an irrigation canal as well as a drainage
Right,
ditch
okay.
there.
So Mike, going back,
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Ellis already handed me this engineering and drainage report. And if you turn to the first page, was this submitted with it?
It was not submitted with the original packet. It was submitted subsequent to that.
Okay, well, so you had it, you got it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, and it does, so you're saying it's not, that doesn't, this.
In that report, it does not have any mitigation for runoff.
Well, first page of the report is the drainage plan narrative. It provides for a 10-year return frequency storm. I don't,
Mayor, Commissioners, good afternoon. If I may address the issue, the drainage study that's been submitted identifies the additional runoff that is going to be created by this development, yes. I think the question in here is the amount of runoff that's going to be created, whether it's based on a 50-year storm, a 25-year storm, or a 10-year storm. Can we live with a 10-year storm? The answer is yes. If we were to stick to a 25-year storm event, the concern that the city engineer or engineering staff has is that a 25-year storm detention requirement would more than likely require some sort of detention pond within the development, which would then change the characteristic of the site plan. A 10-year storm design, you could still work it within the street, the grading of the lots, and so forth. So if the city commission would decide to go forward with a 10-year storm design requirement, then the site plan more than likely would not change. And so,
So what's the normal, or what's the actual, what do we follow?
so
They keep changing that.
what we've been implementing or following, again, the last 2 years, 3 years, has been a 10-year storm design. And so we've seen that that is not an effective stormwater management practice. We want to go to a 25, ideally it would be a 50-year storm. But in conversations that we've had, yes, we've kind of compromised and said, okay, well, a 25-year storm is a starting point.
Okay,
So-
but the commission hasn't adopted that yet. We haven't amended the ordinance to adopt that. I know that there could be a recommendation coming in the future
Yes,
to amend the ordinance, but we haven't done it yet.
that is correct. 'Cause
Okay, so the developer's coming in here and saying, look, 10 years what's in the ordinance, you know, this plan to develop this property's been in the works, and
That's
so,
correct.
you know,
Mayor.
he's saying, I want to move forward with the rules as I know them,
What-
or at least under which we've been operating.
Right, because I remember in one of our meetings, because of what happened in June, the floods in June, we were gonna develop a new, protocol for development, because that was the biggest question I had, you know, on this path, how these neighborhoods get to the point where they're at. But that also takes time, and that hasn't happened yet either. We haven't completed that, right?
And no, sir, we have a draft that's been a developer's manual, design manual, that's in draft form right now, and it's available for engineers and developers to review, and we're in the midst of getting input on that.
Okay, so again, to be clear again, I don't think he's doing anything wrong because he's trying to follow what we currently have. But in the interim, and this is just a rezone, in the interim between now and the time he starts developing, if we adopt even our code practices, right? I mean, whatever year we're following, and now we have to update those along, you know, we're following 2015 and we go to 16 or whatever the version is. If that'll affect him, or does he get grandfathered?
It wouldn't affect them. If we were, or the city commission were to adopt a higher standard, say next month, then this development wouldn't be impacted by that.
Okay.
And then a question, will there be any drainage into Treasure Hills Lake?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Will there be?
This lake eventually makes its way through the Treasure Hills.
Right, but will the land drain into Treasure Hills Lake? Or will it drain to the street?
It would drain to the north, to the lake. I'm not sure what the name of that lake is. there on the-
That's Treasure Hills Lake, that's
Treasure
the
Hills Lake,
beginning
yes.
of it back there. So it would drain to Treasure Hills Lake?
That's correct.
Okay.
Real quick, and Mayor, you're exactly right. If you go to that report, he's saying if you go a little bit further, you'll see the calculations of runoff, where it drains, where it goes. They haven't read the whole report. It will tell you that in there, if you go through it. To answer your question, and I don't know if you know this, and it came up at the meeting, the city invested a tremendous amount of money in improving that canal that's there, that drainage ditch. The city invested in that. That particular property, anybody who builds there has to pay an assessment to the city. It's on the record because of the improvements that were made to that area. That canal is one of the most elaborate ones that this city has. So when I develop there, I don't know the university's doing it, I will pay the city so much per acre, reimbursing them for the developments.
I just have a simple yes/no question. And the question is yes.
It's not going to Emerald Lake. It's
Okay.
not.
Okay,
it's not
is there,
going to Emerald.
is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I just want to, go ahead.
No, no.
Because you were waiting.
I heard.
You heard, okay. Okay, just a clarification. Number one, we don't have an ordinance that says 10 years. It's what we've been following, correct?
Well, the ordinance states that the city engineer, based on conditions and so
Correct,
forth,
correct. But
can
I'm
make
just saying,
that call.
it doesn't state 10 year, it doesn't state
Nor
25 year, it
5
doesn't
years
state
or-
50. It says that he's the floodplain administrator, and we
That's
go by his recommendation.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But we're trying to have some cohesion here. So right now, we've been building with 10 years, correct?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay. And we know we need to go to 25 at a minimum. At some point, we need to look at this. The second part, that's just, I want to make sure I'm real clear on this. If we approve this today, because it's a PD, and that's the one part that bothers me, because I didn't catch that part before. A PD requires this site plan in advance. Is that correct, Mr. Elizardi? Every time you've done one of these, you had to do a site plan?
This is the first one we've ever done. In
First
advance.
PD.
In my PDs, this is the first time we've ever done it.
Okay.
And Joel's not here, but you could ask, this is the first time.
Okay, good. It's the first time I've heard that we have to go through all this for a PD. But if that's what it is, and we approve it, he doesn't have to come back if we change the ordinance? Is that what we're all saying?
Yeah. He's grandfathered in.
I just want to make sure, because I know that when we just do a rezoning, and then they come back for the subdivision, then whatever the law is at the time of the subdivision applies. And so you're saying we're doing both at the same time. Is that not correct, Javier?
There's a site plan that will go with the ordinance. It's going to be part of the ordinance, which is that.
Okay.
That will be part of the ordinance, this will be part of the ordinance. As long as this doesn't change,
Okay.
he's good to
Go
go.
back to the last slide, because you have some words there, and I want to make sure we all understand what the words are. The words say, because it's in the caption.
Yeah.
It says to comply with the drainage requirements and applicable requirements from the engineering department.
Correct.
10-year, 20-year, 12-year, 2-year, what's it going to be?
Maybe 10 years.
10
10 years.
That's what we're voting on.
Yes.
Okay, 'cause you didn't state that.
Well,
Okay.
that could be added to be more specific, we could add it to the ordinance.
Very good.
Yes.
I don't need it, I just want to make sure I know what I'm voting on when I do vote.
Yeah.
And we did have fire department looked at it, and they said it was okay because of the width of the street, the length of the street, the turnaround with the fire engine. I know sometimes when we have a cul-de-sac, they got to be able to turn around.
Well, it's under the assumption that this
And
is under the assumption that this street will connect over here.
So you
So that's
use
why
the
they-
famous word that I don't like. I don't like assume.
Right.
Well,
Okay.
even if he doesn't develop this part,
Yes.
we could make another developer connect. There's language in the ordinance that we could make another developer connect this street to this street.
I understand that. In 10 years, in 2 years?
Yeah.
My concern is we develop it out and we don't have an outlet. And I know Mr. Elizari would like to address that, but I just want to make sure that for us as the commissioners, as we make this decision, we're making it on assumptions, and I know that he wants to buy that property because he wants to finish it out. My concern is that if something happens and he's not able to finish that, how do we guarantee the health, safety, and welfare of all those people that bought that property?
I can answer that. And the fire marshal is not here, but he could answer it too. I don't choose. If you look next door, that subdivision, Treasure Haven,
Yes.
the one I did, you see
Yes.
it's a T,
Yes.
and this is a T. I don't choose those designs. The fire marshal has an ordinance. It's in the books. When you have a street like this that dead ends, there's very specific designs that you can use. This is a T cul-de-sac, hammerhead. Those are, you have to do this. There is no choice. Now, to answer your question, how do we guarantee that? The fire marshal had that same question. The way you guarantee it and the way he wants it, those streets at the end there, right here and right there, we will put a public access easement, which means that if I die, no matter what, nobody gonna block that street up. Nobody for life. That will be an access easement. So that, it doesn't matter if I go away, it will not be blocked, neither one. So that's how they address it. I didn't invent that. The fire marshal and the planning department, that's the design they gave us.
Sir, may I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
And this goes to the point you're making with the fire marshal, because the fire marshal has his own discretions, right? And how he interprets things. You know, the city engineer has the same discretions. What would it, or how would it affect you to, you know, follow the recommendations between the 10-year and the 25-year as far as your development?
It would double the price. It would double the price. That's why right now, as some of you have heard, engineers in the city, developers in the city are trying to have a meeting with the city
Right.
because it would double the price.
So in
You
my
had
neighborhood,
somebody, just so I could answer, you had somebody come before here about affordable housing, it'll go away. It'll go away.
okay, so in my, with my experience here on the commission and in my neighborhood, you know, I stood in those meetings with very upset homeowners saying this is the second, third time we've had water because we had a 100-year storm and that happened twice, and we can't predict the future of, you know, rainfall or if we're ever gonna have that again, but that fear is real. And the cost of the damages that caused, and the question I kept getting asked is, how do these things get passed? Why do we not plan better and do that? So I don't know the exact answer to it, but I can understand where the city engineer is coming from, of you know, trying to follow a certain criteria. Again, just like the fire marshal. Fire marshal's got his own thing, health department's got their own, that's what they do. That's their profession, right? So I don't ever try to tell the engineer he's wrong because I didn't study that, right? And you're very good in construction and development, so I'm not gonna tell you how to build. But I'm just trying to get to the point of, I don't wanna be put in a situation 5 years from now, 6 years from now, and that whole area is flooded. And that comes back on me because, you know, you were part of that, and why did this get passed? Not saying that it happened, but I know I've been through it, you know, and those are not fun meetings, and the effects are very real, and that's the trouble I'm having with it.
Well, let me explain, just to address that, and I'm well aware of your subdivision. Okay? No city, no subdivision in this valley could have handled 15 inches of rain in 3 hours.
Absolutely.
It don't matter what subdivision I build. It's not gonna handle 15 inches in 3 hours. It's not.
Right.
Okay, nobody can, to answer. Now, that canal along 13th, it should have been cleared out years ago, years ago. Hopefully, that will address your problem. But that should have, we knew it was there years ago, and it wasn't done till we had the flood. As far as this area, this is my third PD. When we had the 15 inches of rain, 0 problems. Nobody flooded, nobody had a problem. Why? This is the biggest canal in our community. The school's tapping into it.
Well, but sir, with all due respect, what I do know is, you start putting people on there, and toilets and plumbing, and that's gonna increase the load. And again, that's to the city engineer's point, we have,
No, go ahead.
no, I'm just, you know, that's just the thought process I'm having, and we've all been, we were all here.
Okay, so this is what came across my head, okay? So we had a 15 inches of rain in 8 hours, and Carlos, how many year rain was that?
3.5 hours.
3.5 hours. What was a 500-year rain or 100-year rain? 500-year rain. So if I have a subdivision that's built on a 10-year plan and I have a subdivision built on a 25-year plan, and they both get the same amount of rain, are they both going to rise at the same level, or is one going to rise quicker than the other?
You can't answer that.
That's very.
Right? Right? I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, we can go through the whole thing and drag everything out and talk about the refrigerator that was in a canal and all the different things that could have happened or did happen that caused certain areas to really flood more than other areas. But I've always been of the opinion that, you know, we live in a very flat area and we take a risk. but we try and do the best that we can.
Right.
And I agree with you. I mean, what are we going to do if it rains in 3 years and we're sitting here and, you know, and it happens to be his subdivision that got the lucky dart?
Right.
But all I can do right now is think about where are we currently? What are our current guidelines? And how do we go forward from today?
To the mayor's-
Next month, when we pass the new ordinance, or 2 months from now when we pass the new ordinance, then the rules change. But we're under what we've already done, I think. I
Right.
don't know. That's why we're here to debate and
But
talk
to the mayor's
about it.
point, he's going by what's set in the ordinance now. So
Correct.
we're, like he said earlier, we're putting the cart before the horse, so why don't we wait till we get there?
Right.
And more importantly, the planning and zoning has already made a recommendation to pass
sir.
this, to approve this ordinance. So if I may, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Well, we've got a motion and a second, so.
We've already
we're
done
ready.
that, yeah.
Oh. Okay,
And
so-
and the motion was made by Commissioner Leal, seconded by Commissioner De La Rosa. You can call the question.
I'm done.
No, I mean, as long as you get.
Okay, anybody have any other questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you for the discussion. All right, item 9.
Nobody threw anything at me.
Thoughtful discussion. Item 9, public hearing to consider an ordinance on first reading for a special use permit to allow an adult business microblading studio in a general retail GR district located at 5505 South Expressway 77, Suite 204, bearing a legal description of Lot 1, Block 1, Harlingen Medical Center subdivision, applicant Deanna Lozano. D.
Yes, Commissioner, this is for a proposed microblading. This is at the Harlingen Medical Center. It's the zoning is general retail. It's the floor plan. There's an existing spa in one of the buildings of the Harlingen Medical Center, and in the spa location, they want to do some microblading, and that requires an SUP as an adult business. And it's the building that is close to the expressway. That's where the spa is located. So that's where they want to do the microblading, which is at this building. The building, fire prevention, and police all reported no objections. The requirements, the conditions is to comply with the off-street parking spaces, to comply with the landscaping, comply with state permits, requirements from planning and building inspections, fire prevention, police, to obtain a certificate of occupancy. Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing. No one spoke in opposition and recommended approval unanimously, subject to the list of conditions.
All right, I'm going to go to the public hearing with item A. Is there anyone who would like to speak for or against this special use permit? Anyone? Hearing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing, go to item B, which is consideration of possible action to approve an ordinance on first reading for a special use permit to allow an adult business microblading studio in a general retail GR district in the above described property. I'll ask the city attorney to read the caption, please.
Yes, sir. An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Harlingen to issue a special use permit to Deanna Lozano, MD, to allow an adult business microblading studio in a general retail GR district located at 5505 South Expressway 77, Suite 204, subject to 1, maintaining the existing off-street parking, 2, maintaining the existing landscaping, 3, obtain and maintain the proper state permits, and 4, compliance with the requirements administered by the Planning and Development Department, Building Inspections Department, Fire Prevention Department, and Police Department.
Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 10, consideration of possible action to approve a resolution accepting the anticipated Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvements Program Grant 3-48-001-063-20 contingent upon the receipt of the FAA grant. Marv?
Good evening, Mayor and City Commission. This actually was in front of the Airport Board in May 15th this year for approval and recommendation to the City Commission. This is much like all of our other airport improvement projects that we do at the airport. It's funded under the AIP program, the Airport Improvement Program with the FAA. These are entitlement dollars coming back to the city. What makes this grant actually different than most is that most of our grants in the past have been 90-10, 90% funded by the federal government and the other 10% matching share from the airport in one fashion or another. And this grant was tied with the CARES program, so this is actually funded at 100% from the federal government. This project is slated for, there's actually two projects slated for this money of $4.5 million. That is the rehabilitation of runway 1331, as well as the replacement of the fire panel for the airport terminal building.
All right, is there a motion to approve a resolution, approve a resolution accepting the FAA grant?
So
Motion to
moved.
approve.
Second.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Okay, good work on that, Marv. Item 11, consideration of possible action to approve a resolution accepting Valley International Airport's amended mid-year budget for fiscal year 2019-20.
Mayor, City Commission, I know that I've sent these over so you had a chance to review those, and I'll be happy to go through this in depth as well. My Sunday mask actually ripped coming in here, so I've got the one that fogs my glasses up. So, but let's see if we can get through this.
That's both of
if
us.
you wish. The airport's mid-year budget, it looks really good considering the past few months that we've been through, thanks to the CARES Act grant that we received from the federal government. In 2020, our budget amount of revenue, we budgeted just under $7 million there. I think I do have a pointer right here. $7 million was budgeted in 2020. As of the end of March of this year, we were actually on pace to exceed those revenues. Unfortunately, the health crisis has put a big damper on that, and we were actually looking into coming up at the end of the year nearly $2.6 million in the hole. Thanks to the CARES Act funding of $4.8 million is what we're anticipating drawing by the end of this year. That will actually offset most of our losses, or actually all of our losses, and in revenue for this year, and actually bring us to $2.16 million in net revenue, as opposed to where we would have been at $2.6 million in the hole. So that was definitely a good thing. I think I got this to go forward. Okay, in our expense side, we were actually budgeting $6.8 million. And we were on pace actually to be lower than that at $3.2 million at the end of March. And at mid-year, what we're proposing for mid-year is $6.7 million. Actually, we reduced our expenses by nearly $77,000 as we actually curbed expenses because of the COVID-19
Weren't most of you
crisis.
at the airport board meeting when we went over
Yes.
this?
Yes.
So we kind of
Yes.
already, so.
Okay,
Does
totally up
anybody
to
have
you.
Anybody have any questions?
The only question I had is, are there more CARE funds available that we haven't been able to tap on yet?
No, actually, we applied for additional funding
Yes.
for PPP for our ground handling department under the airline contractor's obligation, and we're still providing information to them. It's about $134,000.
Okay.
But we haven't received that yet, no.
Okay.
Question, since the airport board meeting, Hertz filed bankruptcy, I'm not following their procedures or anything, but are they still open here in Harlingen?
I'm
Hertz
sorry.
I said Hertz has filed bankruptcy since the last meeting.
Yes, they're actually filed a reorganization, Chapter
Right,
11.
so they're
and,
still
we've been
open?
notified they are still open, and they'll still be operating. We've received that word.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the mid-year budget?
So moved. Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, thanks, Marv. Item 12, considering possible to approve 4 grant agreements authorizing the disbursement of site improvement grant funds of $1,500 to Ricardo Rodriguez, Ken Souls, Roy Garrison III, and Maria Cortez, subject to the recipients meeting all of the obligations under the agreement.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This program was actually approved by the Harlingen EDC on January 28, 2020, and then subsequently the Commission approved it on February 5th, 2020. The program is actually a site improvement and job retention grant that allows for site improvements that occurred between June 2019 to May 31st of 2020. We received these 4 applications that were approved, and now we're simply asking you to approve the release of the $1,500 to these recipients.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion or questions?
Questions?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those
Thank you.
opposed, like sign, motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Item 13, consideration of possible action to approve the installation of a speed hump on Wild Persimmon between Wild Orchid and Wild Olive.
On February 10th, 2020, the engineering department received a request to install a speed hump on Wild Persimmon between Wild Olive and a Wild Orchard. Our department reviewed the request and determined the street that met the preliminary eligibility requirements under the speed hump ordinance. On March 20th, 2020, the requester filed an application and submitted a petition with 75% of the residents on the street in support of the speed hump. On May 5th, 2020, the department performed a traffic study at the location of the requested speed hump. The study concluded that the street did not meet the following items for geometric and operational characteristics per the ordinance. The vehicle speeds did not meet the speed criteria, and the streets did not have a history that shows the need for traffic calming. A previous study was performed on the street on January 20th, 2015. This study also concluded that the street did not meet the speed criteria.
All right. Well,
Mayor, I asked you to put this as it's in my district. And although that we've gone through this whole process of doing the studies, this neighborhood already has like 4 speed bumps in it. And right now, people are cutting through from Graham Road over to Stewart Place and back the opposite way. And 75% of the people that live on here would like to have it. Not only that, but the HOA is willing to pay for the speed hump. All they're asking is that, or actually what I asked them, because I didn't want to pin somebody down, is that we'll allow them to have it for a year. At the end of the year, if things are still going good, they want to keep it, they get to keep it. If they think, you know what, this was a bad idea, I said, but I don't want to put it in 3 months later, take it right back out. And so all I'm asking the commission to do is to allow them to have their speed bump. It's not in a one of these, you know, we're not putting it on Harrison or Tyler or Buchanan, we're putting it on Wild Persimmon. And what was the traffic count, 300?
Traffic count was 357, I think.
357 in the middle of COVID.
Right.
And that was the other point.
Per what time unit?
It was only till 4.
Was it
It was a
24-hour
24-hour period.
Right.
24
That's a
hours,
lot
right?
of traffic
So-
for,
so obviously the neighbors, the homeowner association believes that this would be beneficial to
The homeowners association really believe it would be beneficial. You know, they have no problem with it. I mean, they've asked for it twice, and so I asked the city manager, and he says, you know, talk to you, and so I've asked
Let's make a
you.
motion.
So I'd like to make the motion that we approve this.
Second.
Okay, motion to approve, motion and a second to approve the speed bump here. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign, motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
They're
Item
probably
four-
watching us
item
online and they're
14,
celebrating.
All right.
They're good
Consideration possible action to accept or reject bids and award a contract for the 2019-2020 street improvement program project under bid number 2020-09.
This project includes the list of streets as provided in the August 7th, 2019 meeting. Streets will be improved by either mill and overlay methods or complete removal of the asphalt and reconstruction of the base material. Fair Park Boulevard will seek new curb ramps and driveways to accommodate an 8-foot sidewalk from T Street to Destination Park. A total budget for the project of $1,424,747, which includes testing and savings from last year's project, will be utilized for the project. A budget worksheet has been included in the packet. The city received 7 bids on this project. They were open on May 12th, 2020, and all bids met the requirements. An itemized bid tabulation is included. The lowest apparent responsive bidder, Ream Construction, Inc. of Mission, entered a bid of $1,456,977.21. Engineering is proposing to remove 1,600 square yards of concrete sidewalk on Fair Park Boulevard from the contract to meet the project budget. This proposed change does not affect the apparent lowest responsible bidder. This will effectively reduce the bid from Ream Construction to $1,397,777.21.
What did you remove? You said concrete?
Sidewalk. So Fair Park from T Street to Destination Park, we had, in the plans, had an 8-foot walk going from T Street to Destination Park. So we're cutting some of that sidewalk out in logical places between driveways and curb ramps.
We're still going to put a sidewalk in?
Correct. Well, we're
Okay.
putting curb ramps and driveways to accommodate the sidewalk.
Okay.
Couldn't we accept it, because the sidewalk's very necessary, no? I mean,
Well, that's what I was going to say.
It's
So
a safety.
can you walk from T to Destination Park and be off the street, the way you're proposing it?
Not with the current budget.
No, it's to be in compliance with the budget.
To comply with the budget, correct.
And what's the dollar amount that we're over?
It's 85,000.
Couldn't we approve it with the overage?
Yes, we could, and we do a budget amendment at
'Cause I would
a
rather-
future meeting.
I would rather do that and keep the project as intended instead of chopping it. I mean, if it was a cosmetic issue.
I would change that recommendation to approve with the entire sidewalk intact, and we can always do a budget amendment.
And not only that, but it ties us back into the
And that was the whole.
Convention Center, Destination Park.
That was the whole
thoroughfare.
point of the Spur 54 project. That has an
Right.
oversized sidewalk, and that was, the intent was to connect that sidewalk to this.
So may I make the motion to do that?
Yes. We have a motion to award to the lowest responsible bidder, REIM Construction, for the $1.456 million, including the sidewalk.
That's right.
If that's a little bit more, then, okay, that's a motion. and we have a
Second.
Second.
It's $1,456,977.21, right?
21
Correct.
cents.
Okay, that's what I said, but,
Wait,
well,
21
but I thought he said 85,000, and the difference is 50, is not
Well, he wanted to go to
bad, so-
1.3976521.
No, we're not going to do it, okay. All right. Motion is second, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the final item 15, consideration, discussion of possible action regarding the possible resumption of in-person city commission meetings or continuation of Zoom city commission meetings. I just want to know, are you comfortable coming back like this?
Yes.
Or you want to do Zoom?
I think it's important for us to come back to show, lead by example, get some normalcy back.
I agree.
I
Okay.
don't mind, unless,
Unless something changes drastically, like, we're scaled out of sight again, I think we can continue with this. I've done it with the rest of my committees that I'm on.
Yeah, with, of course, the option, should this all catch fire again, that we go back to.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. I agree with that.
Thank you.
I mean, we have to be flexible and adaptable.
Do you need a motion? Motion to come back?
Okay, we have a motion to
second it.
resume in-person commission meetings. I just want to make sure that everybody's on board with this. even though we had this one scheduled this way we did. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Item 16, board appointments.
I have no objection.
I have none, Mayor. No.
Okay, then there are no other items on the agenda. That concludes our meeting. Thank you all very much. Good night.
No.